Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm your boy Retro Bliss, and you are on Retro Bliss Rewind podcast. We're going to have a good show tonight. We are going to talk about video game conventions. That's right. What's a video game convention? Yeah, well, we get video games and home brews and all kinds of stuff. And so, without further delay, let's just talk about it. I'm going to bring in the panel. First of all, we're going to bring in Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala. Then we're going to bring in Dr. Scott, and last but not least, Mr. Poestyle. What's up, Poe?
Hey, how's it going?
All right. So I wanted to kind of start off the show. I got to present the screen here. It takes a while with this stupid software that we got, which we're going to be changing here in a bit. But anyway, I got some video of some convention that I took a video of last year. This is Torg last year. And what am I doing? Okay, there it is. Anyway, Torg is one of the video game conventions here in Ohio, and this is just a little taste of it. We won't play a whole lot of it, but anyway, I was doing some research, and a video game convention is just a place where you get video games, video game paraphernalia. Sometimes you get like board games. There's just all kinds of stuff, and we're going to go into individual things. But I had done some research prior to the show, and I was looking, and worldwide, there were scheduled actually 245 video game conventions.
Wow.
And
there are a lot of nerds out there.
Yeah. And there were, and that doesn't include the ones that were canceled or postponed. And obviously we can't talk about all of them. And two of the four of us here are from Ohio, and so we've been to two or three of the video game conventions here in Ohio, so we can speak of those. But three of us have been to the Pittsburgh Gaming Expo, and then Mike has been to some of the bigger ones too. So we're just going to talk about a little bit of that. So let me get rid of this. I'm going to stop this screen, and we're just going to go ahead and start talking about it. So I want to start off with Mike. And the reason why I want to start off with Mike is because I think he was the most recent guy who came back.
I came back Sunday from the last one.
He went to the
Pinball Expo / VGS Video Game Summit just outside of Chicago.
Yeah, some people think that's not a video game expo, but it actually was. Tell us about it, Mike. What happened there? Tell us.
It was so. I mean, it's kind of funny that we start with this because Pinball Expo was definitely a little different than my usual experience at a video game convention. As we all know, video game conventions. Well, maybe not our audience knows, but we all know they break up into three kind of sections. You've got your free play section, you've got your vendors, and then you have your guests. And your guests are usually either YouTubers, gaming YouTubers, or they're people who have worked in the industry, famous people like Nolan Bushnell or Howard Scott Warshaw, or Dan Kitchen. And then, for me, I love the vendors. I like some of the guests. Like, that's not really the big draw for me at a video game convention, but the free play. And quite often convention, like at least the bigger conventions, they'll be across 3 days. And that first day is usually a half day, and it's focused, like it's just really for the free play. And that is your best time to go because it tends to be, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to go for the 2 days where everything's open. You'll get more playing done. They're usually open later. Pinball Expo, believe it or not, on Saturday night was open till 2 a.m.
Wow.
That's when I finally got to play the brand spanking new, not released yet, because Alice in Wonderland, the copyright on that is expiring next year. And so there's two companies that are making an Alice in Wonderland pinball cabinet, and they were both there. Only one had a playable cabinet. And the lines during the regular convention hours were massive. You'd have to wait an hour to play that cabinet. especially if somebody was good.
Surprised Disney's not going to try to stop that.
Yeah.
But
And
anyway, go ahead.
And so Pinball Expo was sponsored also by these big pinball companies. And so it included, you could sign up for Jersey Jack, you didn't have to pay for, but Stern you had to pay for. I got to go on the Stern one, but factory tours. And I was not allowed to film anything outside of their lobby because obviously they were building cabinets. They were building the new X-Men cabinet while we had our tour. So and you have big manufacturers. It is it's the only place I've been where you would see all these pinball cabinets with sold stickers on them, and the sold stickers are like $10,000.
Wow.
People go and buy brand spanking new from Stern, you know, X-Men or whatever, at this convention. There's some high rollers at this convention. And this convention, which I've noticed at like at PRGE, they have an auction. This one had an auction, but it was all arcade and pinball machines, like full size, and some of them dating back to like the 1920s and 1930s. So there was a big, massive auction at this one. It was certainly different. But I was really, really happy that I went. I like pinball. I suck at pinball, but I do like
too.
pinball.
Let me ask you a question, Mike. Didn't you get some hardware or something while you were there? Some kind of something to hang on the wall or something?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. So
tell me a little bit about that.
For me, this is really cool. I won't say it's an honor because all I had to do was be a guest. And I was a guest at the Pinball Expo, did a panel with Michael Thomason. I believe his name was Barry Evans. Barry Evans owns the Guinness record for the biggest Sonic the Hedgehog collection in the world. But Walter Day was there. And Walter Day used to be the head of Twin Galaxies. And he has, for the last decade or so, had a superstars of the video game industry trading card thing. And he came to our talk, and I think everybody that spoke there got one of these. But I now have a trading card in his set.
Nice.
Do you have any spares? I got some rats in the basement. I got to scare out.
I have some bike spokes.
I will be happy to provide one of these to anyone who promises not to put it in their bike spoke.
Wait, that's ballistic on there, isn't that? That's ballistic.
No, that's far too handsome to be ballistic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey now.
But anybody who genuinely wants one, because I got to give one to each of my kids that come back on Sunday. I got a small stack. If you would actually like one, I'll sign it. I'll send it to you.
Send Bliss one. Bliss wants one.
All right. And Zenblo can have one too. But yeah, so that's how most conventions break up. This one, Pinball Expo, was certainly smaller than, say, a Midwest Gaming Classic or Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I've never been to Korgs or Torgs, so I can't really gauge the size of those compared to these. But it was the high roller stuff, and there was really cool stuff that you don't normally see at a normal video game convention. They had the official Stern pinball tournament there too, so they had a room that was just for tournament players. I will be releasing a video probably next week about that convention, but that was my first time there. It was the 40th anniversary, and it was the first time teaming up with a video game summit. It was definitely pinball heavy, but aside from that, it did play out very much like you would expect any other convention.
Sounds like a great time. I knew you were going, and I'm like, man, I wish I could go. I wanted to go so bad, but I couldn't make it. But
you would have liked it. You would have liked it.
Well, now that I know, it also had. So what? It had video games too. So obviously, it sounded to me like the video game section probably was a lot pale.
So as far as like arcade cabinets that you could just like Atari. Had a representation there. They had their Asteroids cabinet, which I love that cabinet. It's a newer arcade, the Asteroids Recharged. And then they had a little area, well, maybe two areas. It also wasn't set up. You know how you normally have, like the vendor room is just aisle, right? This one wasn't like that. It was, you kind of were walking around everything, and then here's the Jersey Jack area, and they've got all their pinball machines. There's the Stern area, they got all their pinball machines, and then kind of all throughout other vendors mixed in with free play areas. So like there were a couple big free play areas, and then there were a few like smaller free play areas. I would say there was probably 30 arcade cabinets and probably 150 pinball machines spread around. If I was to guess, I didn't go around and count them. But I will say this. Some of the pinball machines, and they had a homebrew pinball machine section, which was fantastic. Somebody made a Saw, you know, the Saw movies?
Yeah.
And when you drain your last ball, on top is that, you know, I think it's in the first one, that girl has the metal clamp on her head that's gonna like rip her open or whatever. When your last ball drains, the clamp, like that thing is on top of the machine. It goes, it made me jump about 10 miles. And they had a Greatest Showman cabinet, and they had one that somebody built, and I'll show a picture of it when I do my video, but they put it beside, you know how the largest pinball cabinet in the world is the Atari Hercules cabinet, right?
Yeah.
Uses a billiard ball. This one is bigger than that. And it wasn't, you couldn't go and just walk up and play it, but they had it side by side with the Hercules. So it was cool. There's some really cool stuff there. And the brand new, the new Metallica that's coming out from Stern, a bunch of the new X-Men cabinet, Alice in Wonderland, the new ABBA cabinet, which, you know, I like ABBA fine enough. It wasn't the best pinball machine, I didn't think. I really liked the Elton John one. That came out, I think, earlier this year. But yeah, so it was great. Like if you're into pinball, they had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like they had all the classics, and then the brand new stuff, even stuff that isn't released yet. So that was cool.
That sounds
and
like
that's
a
the
great
type of
time.
stuff that you can go and see.
Wow, that sounds like an awesome expo right there. Let's move on to I want to talk about Pittsburgh for a minute, and who else to talk about Pittsburgh than Poe? Let's start with Poe now. We're going to start with Poe, but actually, there's three of us that can actually speak on Pittsburgh a little bit here, because three of the four of us actually have been to the Pittsburgh Gaming Expo. But Poe is from Pittsburgh and has probably been to more of those expos. But Dr. Scott actually has been a panelist there. But we'll get to that in a minute. But I want to talk to Poe about this, because Poe, tell us about your first experience at the Pittsburgh Gaming Expo and how it has changed from the first time that you've been to what it is now.
Yeah, it was 3 years ago was the first one I went to. So I think that was their second one. But I think there was a gap between the first and the second.
Because I saw you last year. That was the first one I was at, was last year. The first time when we first met face to face. Yeah. So, but anyway, go ahead. Tell us how it has changed.
Yeah, it was a good bit smaller back then, and probably not as organized. Although for us, my son and I, that was our first gaming convention, so we were still blown away. And the main reason we would go is to look through the old games. You know, it's like we don't have all the time in the world to go places anymore to find little shops that have this stuff. I know Pittsburgh has a bunch of places you can get, but the way I work and everything, a convention's the perfect thing. You go there and everybody has everything laid out. And my son especially, I mean, he would get a big bag full of Game Boy games and stuff like that. And then, okay, let's hit the free play. And then, okay, I want to go home. You know, he wants to play all the games like right now. So,
yeah.
And I wasn't going to go this year just because he's not here. And I had been off work for so long with what was going on with me. So I didn't put back any money this year to buy games. But then I saw that Mark from Classic Game Room was going to be there and everything. And I'm like, you know, watch that for years. You know, you got to go see them.
That is one of the very rare online celebrities that I would go to.
And he's from Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
He's not
15 minutes away.
Yeah,
wow,
not far from me. And some of the places that he plays pinball, I didn't want to be a stalker, but I thought maybe sometime I just happened to show up there when he's playing pinball or something. But this worked out better. I didn't have to call the police or anything. So, but
Well, last
Following
year,
him into the bathroom.
last
Hi.
year, Poe said he was going. Okay, so I got with the wife and I said, "You want to go to Pittsburgh? It's a 4-hour drive from Cincinnati, right?" So I'm like, "Let's go. Let's jump in the car." And for those of you who don't know, but one of my early subscribers, his name is Operation Shutdown. And if you watch the show, one of my intros, there's a caricature of me. He drew that, and me and Operation, we're like this, man. I mean, we during the football game on Sunday night, we and him were texting each other about different plays that were going on and everything. We were just going back and forth and all that. Anyway, long story short, I wanted to meet Poe, and I wanted to meet Operation, and so we jumped in the car. Ron and I jumped in the car, and we drove to Pittsburgh, and we go there, and I was going to film, and so I'm going to film, and I started filming, and I get this tap on the shoulder, right, and I turn around, and it's CK, Cannabis.
Oh, I thought you meant Calvin Klein.
Cannabis Kid. Cannabis Kid.
Cannabis Kid.
Marty
If you guys
McFly
don't
was
know
there?
who that, that's another one of my longtime subscribers, and he had asked me for a copy of my logo. He gives me a shirt with my logo on it and a picture of me on the back, right? And so I'm like, wow, man, thanks, and so he started hanging out with me, and I so much so that I didn't even have a chance to even film the thing. So we were just kind of hanging out, and me and the wife, and we're just kind of walking around and looking at everything. And I had bought a few things and was kind of checking out all the games. And at that time, I don't know what it was like this year, but last year, like half of it was video game related and video game related stuff, like toys and stuff like that. But then the
Artwork.
other half was all board games.
yeah, tabletop games.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was like that this year or not. But anyway, but then they had another. It was like a 2-section convention. And then you go into the back section, and it was like almost all free play, and it was compared to what Torg and Korg's has been. This was huge. There were a lot.
Yeah.
And CK, he wanted to play. He wanted to keep playing. He was just like, So anyway, unfortunately, we went to go eat, and I got under the way. I had to end up leaving. I didn't even get a chance to see Operation Shutdown, but it was a really cool convention. I really liked it. So I wanted to go back this year, but I heard that the rooms were impossible to get because there was a game this year around the same time that the convention was. Is that right?
Yes.
I think there was a game.
There
so
was
I'm
a
like,
game.
well, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go down. I'm not going to drive to Pittsburgh this year. But anyway, so so Scott, is this your first time? Was this your first time to the Pittsburgh Gaming Expo?
Yes, it was. And it was only my second time in Pittsburgh anyway. But it was the first time there. And it was, even though it wasn't like the biggest show I've ever been to, it was a very nice size show. And the one gentleman who he's the co-owner of it, Brian. He's just a top-notch guy. The show's so very well organized. Everybody there who is helping them run the place, very friendly, very knowledgeable, and willing to help you out at the drop of a hat. I'm not into the tabletop stuff that much, but there were a lot of really cool tabletop things there. When I say tabletop, because when people think board game, that's one thing, but they had other games there that were not a board game, and I don't mean just like Dungeons and Dragons or something with dice or something like that. They had things that were, for lack of a better way to put it, it'd be something specially made that's like round with pegs in it and holes and things in the board, and some things with magnets and stuff, and just really neat and very interesting games that you could either play or purchase while you were there as well. So if somebody was looking for something other than video games or something other than, say, pinball, which is technically not an actual video game, but they can be, they also had something other than that families or people could end up buying and taking home for themselves or for their families or for when they have get-togethers. It was just a great experience. I think that I saw more of a variety of stuff there than I saw at any other convention. Simply because, you know, you did have right across from I most of the time I was at the Tech Buzz booth on the panel there, and there was a fudge place that I wish I could remember the name of it right offhand, but I can't. I could probably pull up my little flyer here, but it's not that important right now. And so you had like these a confectioner there, and you had, of course, people there with 3D printed stuff like you'd see it, but not like 100 of them. They had the, you know, the what are those, the gotcha, the machines you put the coins in, you know, you get stuff
Arcades?
out. No, not the you get stuff to take home. Not they're called gotchas, something like that. I can't remember, but there was just a huge variety of stuff there. But even though when I was at CGC, the Cleveland Gaming Classic this year, they had a massive free play area, I think that the one at Pittsburgh was, even though in a smaller space, I think that they had even more games, and they even had a virtual reality area as well.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing expo.
They had great space there for consoles, every console pretty much you could think of, and then they had a full size Vectrex arcade cabinet there.
Vectrex cabinet. If you guys haven't seen Mr. Poestyle's video, he took some video of it cycling the overlays. It's really, really cool.
Yep.
I just wanted to interject for one moment. I have nothing to say about Pittsburgh because I haven't been to that show. But if you're going to be at Torg on November 2nd, Game Freak's going to be there. He does a lot of arcade stuff. He's a cool guy. I like his videos. I don't catch them all the time, but I watch when I can. So if you see him, say hi. And
Absolutely.
if you've never heard of him, check out the Game Freak and give him a sub.
The Game Freak.
Absolutely.
The Game Freak.
Also, let you know, when I went to Pittsburgh, Brian didn't have a table set up, but Brian from BD Retro Mods was also there with us last year in Pittsburgh. Now, he was there this year also, wasn't he?
Yep.
Yes, he was.
But he was just hanging out. He didn't have his...
He couldn't get a
room. I think he was just a guest at Pittsburgh this year.
He was a guest.
I don't know if we mentioned, but Brian wanted to be with us, but he had a prior engagement and wasn't sure if he'd make it. So that's why he's not here. He's not here because he doesn't know anything about cons. In fact, he has the BD Retro Mods experience.
Yes.
Which looks awesome.
Yeah. But
he had to paint his toenails tonight, and that's okay. So
here's a question. What is your favorite thing after the free plays? Cosplay, after the free plays, is it the vendors, the cosplays, the talks? For me, it's the vendors because I don't buy anything online, and I like to search out and find. My collection is large enough that the things that I'm looking for you don't find at the average table. And so I'm always excited when you see that big bin of Atari games and there's just that one and I could spot it. I need that one. So
I did that, but
for me.
It was actually a kind of a joke. I met Brian there this year just when I was looking through bad Atari games. And I hear Poe, and he comes over, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" He's like, "Oh, are you looking for something in particular?" No, I got all the games that I want, the must-haves for my systems for the most part. So I'm looking for some really garbage games here that Mike will want to make fun of. So I did find one. Let's see if I have it nearby. I probably do in my pile of junk here.
Hey, watch! It better not be what I.
No.
It better not be the one I hope you think it is.
This same vendor had this there last year in the same exact spot. And so I had to grab Sneak and Peek for the Atari 2600.
Ah,
And I said, I know all about it, but I'm buying the thing anyways.
I
Yeah,
actually have that
I got
game.
a couple stinkers right here. This is this weekend's mini reviews. Although this one isn't as, but once you actually try the different game modes, it's not quite as bad.
It's not
as
that
you may
bad.
Well, you
think,
know what?
but this stinks.
I didn't realize that if once you're on mode 13 on Game Jockey, you can actually move horizontally on that game. I didn't know that. I thought it was only vertically that you could move.
If that was in fact the case, I still don't know if I'd put it in my bottom 10. But it's not a good game anyway. But if you couldn't move sideways, it would really stink.
Yeah. But anyway, it's not as bad as I had said. So anyway,
Well, and Tutankhamun, I know it's today's standards. I
It's
know, but I borrowed it from my friend way back when it was new, and I thought it was pretty cool back in the 80s. Now
we were all stupid and high in the 80s.
all right.
So Game Freak has a really, really good question, and I think this is kind of a loaded question because we could talk about the answers to this question for a long time. He says,
we should.
Yeah, this is his first convention, and which is crazy since he's been in gaming since '81. But do the vendors have reasonable prices? And the answer to that question is no and yes.
Yeah. So I would say. You know how you go on any Facebook group or any video game buy sell group anywhere, and there's every once in a while a deal pops up and it disappears, and there's a whole pile of reasonable posts, and then there's some absolutely ridiculous ones. Convention is the exact same way.
Yeah.
That said, there is method to the madness. If you're looking for the best selection, you want to be the first one in, first one to the table, but you're going to pay for it. If you want the really good deals, you're going to wait till the last day in the last hour, and you're going to. Yeah, that's me. I buy all my games.
I got my Intellivision story. You remember last year?
Yes, you do. But that's when I do most of my buying. Because I also know that the type of stuff that I'm looking for is not the type of stuff that most people are looking for. I gave up buying Nintendo when the thing shot to the roof. So I buy Intellivision, ColecoVision, Vectrex, but like Atari 5200, Atari 2600, 7800, stuff that isn't really as popular, and I can kind of be safe waiting till later in the show. I have never paid sticker price for a game. But the other thing too is, if you're buying one game, they're probably not going to give you much of a deal. If you're if this is like $10 and you're like, oh, would you take 8 for it? Probably not. But if you're like, all of these 4 are $10, would you take 30? They probably will.
Let me tell
you're taking volume.
Let me tell my Intellivision story from Torg last year.
It's a great story.
It is awesome. It is awesome because I don't have a lot of. I'm kind of like Game Freak in a way. I've been a retro gamer for as long or longer actually. Well, no, since when did it? No, since '77. Since '77.
Yes, buying bundles.
And don't be afraid to make offers. The worst thing they can say is no.
What?
99 times out of 100, they'll either say yes or try to meet you in the middle.
There was a vendor at Pittsburgh that actually had a sign that said, "We encourage you to make an offer."
Yeah,
it's like a garage sale in many ways.
So
but go ahead, Phil.
So anyway, I'm going to, and I had an Intellivision too, but I didn't have an original Intellivision. I wanted one for the collection because the Intellivision 2 controllers are poop. Anyway, so I wanted a real Intellivision one, but I didn't have one, and so I go to this table, and this guy had one that was in pristine condition, and he had a bunch. I want to say around 35 complete in box games. One included was Masters of the Universe, which is
a pricier one.
Yeah. And I said, man, and he says, make me an offer. And I said, man, I don't want to insult you. And I said, and I just got here at the convention, and I didn't tell him this, but I only came to the convention with like $400 in my pocket and my PayPal card. Right. So I'm like, well, let me look around and I might come back a little later. And sure enough, I go around and I bought some things from some other things. And so I was having Brian at his table off and on during the day. And I had been telling Brian about this in television, and it was later on in the day, it was getting close to me getting ready to leave. And I said, man, I'd really like to have that. And so I pulled out my wallet. I had $148 left. That's all I had. And I told him the story when I worked for the post office for 33 years before I retired. I was in the field maintenance, and we used to go to garage sales as we were driving around on weekends every now and then. And I went this one time, this guy had this chess set and asking for $10. And a brand new tournament set. And I'm like, I want this. So I was getting ready to pay for it. And my buddy says, no, here, let me have that. He says, will you take $1 for this? And the guy's like, he like hesitated, like he was all ticked off. But then he paused. He's like, okay. And then he turned around to me and says, pay him. And so I paid, and then I go back out the truck. I said, I'm not lying to you, Jerry. You embarrassed me. He goes, have you ever seen that person before? And I'm like, no. Do you think you'll ever see him again? I'm like, no. You asked. Now, to me, that was a little bit too low, and I would never go that low. But
I'm too Canadian to be that bad.
So
I always
you don't be afraid to at least do something. So I was telling Brian this story, and I said, well, I had $148 in my pocket, and the guy had this. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go there and I'm going to see what I can do. So I go there and I said, the guy had it all. He had everything. He didn't move any of it. And it was getting towards the end of the day. And I said, man, you didn't sell any of it. And he goes, no. He said, make me an offer. And I said, man, I don't want to insult you. He says, make me an offer. I said, would you take $100? He says, I can't do that. And he paused. He says, I'll take, I think he said like 220 or something like that. And so I pulled out my wallet and I pulled that $148 and I laid it right out in front. I just pulled it right, and I laid it right out in front on his table, and I counted it all out, and then I opened up my wallet to show him there was nothing left in there. So $148, man, that's all I got. And he had a double of one of the baseball games or something. I can't remember one. Just some kind of one of the cheesy sports games was, or whatever it was.
World Series baseball, probably.
Yeah. And he says, if you let me keep that double, I'll let you have the rest of them for the $148. So I'm going back to Brian's table, and it's in this box, and I'm carrying this big old box. This big old box full of stuff for $148. And I'm acting like it's real heavy. It's not real heavy, but I'm acting like it's real heavy when I'm going to Brian. And Brian's like, what'd you do? You got all that for $148. Point is, you just
it wasn't on the Intellivision elbow.
It was on the Intellivision now. But
no, Bo Jackson baseball. That was on the NES. It was a good game.
No, right. But, the point is, they do wheel and deal. So
yeah, and the thing you have to remember, so what I usually do is at the end of a convention, I'll go up to somebody that has something that I want, and I want to make a lowball offer. And I know I want to make a lowball offer. And I go right up to them and like, listen, it's the last hour of the show. I won't be offended if you say no, but I'm going to make an offer on that, and I'll make the offer. And sometimes they take it and sometimes they don't. Because the thing you have to remember about a lot of these vendors is, especially if they flew there, like when I went to Pinball Expo with Michael Thomason, we both had luggage, and he put some of his stuff in mine, and we made sure they were both under the 50 pounds, and he doesn't want to take it back. He will make a lot, and a lot of people will make deals, especially with big stuff, and especially with big stuff that usually doesn't move. There's an old story about a guy who owns a game store. He has his two favorite days are the day he gets Intellivision stuff in, and the day 2 years later when he sells it. Because Intellivision stuff doesn't fly off the shelves. So you can get deals on that type of stuff. If you're going to be picking up, a whole pile of popular NES games, you're not going to get big deals on those, because they know they're going to sell.
Yeah.
Or Pokemon or something like that. And I'll just comment to this, and then you could go ahead. Unfortunately for resellers, fortunately for me, and there is some second gen stuff that really goes for high bucks, but you can build a really healthy second gen collection for cheap.
I really have. But speaking of second gen, especially one thing I've noticed, and this is kind of veering off a little bit, but one thing I've noticed, and I want you guys to kind of touch on this too. I'm into homebrews, and I've noticed that there are have been a number of homebrew vendors that have been at some of these gaming conventions.
Can I just talk about Portland Retro Gaming Expo for a second?
Because absolutely, go right ahead. Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be about tours.
PRGE is kind of, I don't think it's actually physically the biggest, but it is kind of the mecca of game conventions, at least in the United States. And especially for older guys like us. Atari Age has a massive, massive booth. We're talking like 30 tables, all different setup TVs, try all the new homebrews. Champ Games has been releasing, the last 2 years, he's been releasing his games there. And he's got a booth. And I think this year, I didn't go this year, but I think it was bigger. And then if you're into Intellivision homebrews, I would say 80% of the year's homebrews are released at PRGE. Especially from Intellivision Revolution, who's probably the most prolific homebrew publisher. It's homebrew. And then, of course, you get guys like John Hancock, who's got Block'em Sock'em on every system you could hope to get.
On home pregnancy tests and everything.
Yes. Yeah. And so he's got his games there. You get guys like John Riggs. He does a lot of hacks. He did the Yeah Beavis 2. I did a review on that.
He had a Burger Time hack that I was going to grab from him, and I forgot to get it.
Yeah, the Bob's Burger. Yeah, I was going to grab that one too.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not so much into hacks. I like newer games, or if it's from Champ Games, I'll buy any port. But PRGE is absolutely a launching pad for a lot of. I am so upset that you have that and I don't have that yet.
I can't even tell what it is.
Tutankhamun.
Oh, yeah.
It's the good version. Show them the version you have.
Well, I have the ROM.
This is what
I have. The video already. I got a friend of
show
mine.
Show us the ROM. Oh, yeah.
I got a friend of mine to pick it up from John's table at PRGE so that he could express it to me, and I guess he got whatchamacallit, and like life caught up with him or whatever. And so if I had ordered it from Champ, if I had waited and ordered it from Champ Games, I'd already have it. But he picked up some other games for me too, and he said he got me through a gift in there. So. I mean, I can't complain too much, but I've been dying to do that review. That's going to be my review this week, even if I don't. This
guy's our buddy. He can't do us wrong. He doesn't do us wrong.
I'll go like this, and I'll show a picture of it. And I don't think I'm going to do a review of the Intellivision Block'em Sock'em port. No.
Oh, it's I love Brian.
I have no problem. I have no problem with John putting it on everything, but it's not something that really lends itself to what I do.
I've got 3 different ports of it. I don't need it.
I picked up the one. Okay, I picked up the one on Super Nintendo from John 2 years ago at Portland, and I hadn't played it, but I found out that there's a bug on it. You can't, like, at a certain point, you can't do it. And he was at Pinball Expo, and I meant to bring it with me to exchange it, because when I saw him at Midwest Gaming Classic, he's like, "Oh yeah, here's my card. Just email me. I'll mail you." I'm like, "You don't have to mail it. Next time I see you, I'll just bring it." And I forgot it.
So you guys know how I play on the channel. I'm notorious for not reading the instructions, and I put Block'em Sock'em in there and beat it in like 40 minutes. Well,
and it also depends on the version.
This was what version was that I was playing?
Was
that the Jaguar version?
Genesis, I think. I
The
think you were
Genesis
playing the
version, yeah.
Genesis.
Yeah, I think the Genesis was the first one. That's the one that I've got, and I did a full review on it. And I was honest about the review too, because there were only two things I really didn't care for. One thing was there's no way to save it whatsoever,
No.
and the other thing is that bloody song that keeps going over and over and over and over. And
I have heard though, the Steps Gaming. I have heard the 7800 version is actually the best version. That's probably
Really?
a lot to do with Daryl Ginter.
Yeah,
Really?
Daryl's that's another thing. That's where I met Daryl, was at a gaming convention.
Will it
Yep.
play on the 2600 plus though? I would hope so.
Probably.
Block 'em, sock
If
'em,
not, just
Mike.
buy the 7800 plus. I'm sure it'll work there.
It's the same
Right.
bloody. Once you update your 2600 plus, it's the same thing. Different.
If you
Where do you get
can
those
update
updates?
it.
You have to buy that from somebody down the road, right? And you have to have a PC. A guy in the back alley. Update.
No, I will not be doing the NES Knight Rider anytime soon, but part 2 of Knight Rider will be coming out sometime in the next few months.
That was a hit.
And now back to conventions.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Homebrew is what your question was,
Oh,
right?
well,
yeah, we were
well,
talking about homebrews.
there was a question that you guys asked earlier, and I didn't say. Oh, my favorite part about the conventions, I have to agree with you, Mike, is the vendors. I mean, you have everything like the cosplayers and all the other stuff, but I really dig the vendors, and of course I like the guests as well, because that's when you get to meet some people that you talk to all the time, but you've never officially met, or friends of yours that you've never even been in the same room with. But I really like the vendors, especially because I've heard different people across the country or in different realms of YouTube say, depending upon where you go, you're going to find a different concentration of stuff, and of course a different concentration of vendors depending upon where you go as well. So you're always going to see something different no matter where you go, even if you're going to Southern Ohio or if you're going to Midwest or something like that. So yeah, I really dig the vendors.
Yeah, last year, Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
Sorry, I was just because the comment here. Yeah, Pinball Expo isn't going to be for everyone. It was combined with VGS, and it was their first year, but it was definitely pinball heavy. If they continue to do this partnership, which I think they do, I think you'll see the video game side of it grow. So maybe in the future.
What were you going to say, Poe?
Oh, last year, I don't know if they were there this year at Pittsburgh, but last year there was the husband and wife team that made the giant wall art. It was the NES cartridges. Well, they make any cartridge. They'll make Genesis and stuff like that. And I saw their stuff there and just kind of walked past. The Zelda's what caught my eye. The big gold cartridge.
Is that the one with every game? Was that the one with every officially released game in it?
We see it now, Ryan.
Yeah, he just had like these cartridges that were wall art, different ones. You can order.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could order. And I didn't right then, but then the Gaming Road Warrior's birthday was coming up in a month. So I contacted the guy after the show and ended up buying Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. Great big giant NES cart. So,
cool.
And sent that out to Mike the Gaming Road Warrior. But yeah, really cool stuff that you really don't expect to find. So you don't just have video games and stuff. You have a lot of cool stuff.
There, I have noticed that, and it seems to get more and more, but you get like the video games, or you get, these kind of side projects that, or not video games, sorry, board games or tabletop games, like these kind of side things. I see a lot of Magic cards, which isn't my thing, but I know there's definitely an overlap there. A lot of D&D kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something for everybody. If you are a gamer of really any type, there's going to be something there for you.
And there's always going to be something that you're going to look at and you're going to go, should I get it? Maybe I'll get it. And then you walk by and you'll either forget about it or you'll decide not to get it. And then you walk out. And then an hour after you leave the show, you go, oh man, I should have got that. I hate that. I hate that. But yeah, it's fun. Now,
I would.
Sorry,
I'm just responding to comments, and I apologize for interrupting.
But, no, you're good.
If I was anywhere near Houston, or if Houston wanted to fly me down, I'm sure all of us would be happy to go to Houston if they wanted to bring us down, and we'd cover it. But I'm in Ontario. These guys are in Ohio and Pittsburgh there. But
I've heard good things about that arcade expo. Because a friend of mine lives in Texas, and he said, "Yeah, that's a cool expo to go to."
Yep, there's a bunch of big ones. Like I said, the onset there are 245 that I counted online of gaming conventions worldwide. A bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of them. And there's no way we could ever touch on all of them, and probably many more that are larger than the ones that we're touching on here on the show. So yeah, tattoos.
Yeah, I see. They don't actually. I don't think I've ever seen them actually doing tattoos there. But like you can.
Oh yeah, they did at Pittsburgh. People were laid out getting them at Pittsburgh. Last year, John Riggs got one while I was there.
Yeah, Riggs got one there this year too.
Well, Brian, I'm gonna have to get down to Houston sometime. It sounds awesome.
It does sound good. I wanted to touch on something that I know now. I when I go to these things, I get like media passes, and I can kind of get in without standing in lines too often. But when I first started going to these things, man, the lines sometimes. I want to talk about this. Sometimes the lines for these things are too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what is going on with, sometimes it's just an organizational thing. I don't know if it's the way that the show is organized and how that the tickets are sold or how they're processed when the people are coming in, because what happens is, they sell chances or whatever, and people, they're given things when they're walking in. It's just sometimes it's just such a slow process when people are coming in. As soon as they open the door, sometimes people are lined up out the door for such a long period of time, and that's one thing that I wish that and they're not always the same. Not all shows are equally the same, but I remember my first gaming convention was Korg's 3 years ago. And it was a hot day. And Ron and I went together, and we stood outside in the heat for an hour and a half before we got in. It was horrible. Wow. It was just, and when we got inside, and I'm sure Scott will remember this probably, the air conditioning was off.
Did you say 3 years ago?
Yeah.
I hadn't gone to Korg's at that time. The first time I'd gone to Korg's was last year, and it was cold. We had to wait out in the cold.
Yeah, well,
it wasn't really cold, but it was cool enough where you're like, oh, I needed a coat.
Yeah, well, it was so hot. The air conditioning was off.
Wow.
It was sweltering inside too. It was horrible. But,
and your wife isn't into video games, so I'm sure she was thrilled that you brought her.
Other than Pittsburgh, she hasn't been to any of them with me since. So
that's because she met me there.
Yeah,
I'm not going back.
I'm done with Poe.
I've never had problems at Pittsburgh. I've been lucky, but I've always bought my tickets months ahead of time, and they have a line just for that. So you show them your phone, and
good. Pittsburgh was pretty good. I didn't have a media pass there, so I did have to stand in line there, but it seemed to go pretty good there.
I try to pretend I'm cool. I just put Mr. Poestyle on my badge like that means something. Hold it up.
But I will say,
people.
Sorry, I will say like the big ones that I've been to, so like Pinball Expo, PRGE, and Midwest Game Classic, they're all at convention centers, and the lines are inside at least. So, what Albo's saying here, that Game On had attendees in the rain for 2 hours, which is ridiculous.
Wow. But Portland had a fire alarm pulled, didn't they, this year? So everybody had to go outside.
Oh, yes. I wasn't there this year, but it's and like obviously they have to process that to make sure everybody buys their tickets or has their tickets, and so there are going to be lines, but you should take care of your attendees that are waiting in them, for sure.
This is something that I don't know how long that we really want to touch on it too long, but and I can't speak to this personally, but Mike and Scott can, because they have actually done it. But at these conventions, when as a panelist, or when you guys go in there, or when other people go in there as a panelist or as a guest, when they go in there to talk, what type of things can people expect to hear when they go to these things, and they they may go, oh, Dr. Scott's going to be there. What are they going to hear? Or Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala, what are they going to hear when they go into somewhere like that?
Depending on who you want to see, it's going to be vastly different.
Yeah.
And some people are animated in their talks, and some people will be looking at a computer screen. You just watch, so you pick what you want to see. When I talk at conventions, it's about kind of the history of homebrew and development of homebrew, and where to get them, how to develop, just kind of Homebrew 101, making people aware, showing the differences of what people do now versus what people do then. At least that's so far all I've really done. Scott's been on, bigger panels than I've been.
I was on, let's see, I had my own panel last year at Torg, and me and the other guys from the Retro Roundtable, and we did one on, of course, which has kind of been a hot topic the past couple of years, the physical versus the digital. And, of course, we thought we were on the cutting edge thinking about that back then, but we learned, maybe we weren't. But the sad thing about, I think the sad thing about panels themselves, though, can be how the convention itself takes care of you. If you're in a place where you can be heard, that's always a good thing, like a private room, or if they're going to, because some convention centers don't have a private room, and they got to put you in something where it's like kind of roped off by curtains and stuff. And if they're going to have something right outside of that, like a cosplay contest, and you have people screaming and cheering, and I'm not trying to say anything negative about anybody running anything, but that's just not the place to have a contest, or to have a drawing, or to have something like that right outside where you're having your con.
Yeah,
you can't hear each other
I've seen
talk.
that. Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, and then at CGC this year, I was on a larger panel with several other YouTubers like Riggs and Jay Malone and Stephen Haywood. And Game Dad and Lindsay from LL Cool Games, and we were talking. Oh gosh, what were we talking about? Yeah, it just went blank what we even talked about. But there are also the you have to take into consideration that not every single time you go someplace like this is something going to run smoothly, because all the microphones we had, they were either they had very low charge, or they were having an interference. So by the time we got to the end, we all had a microphone. By the time we get to the end, we were sharing 2 microphones. Yeah. And it was just kind of like, okay, you want to talk now? Here you go. But things happen. That has nothing to do with necessarily, the convention itself or the people running it. It has to do with, maybe the facility that they're at and what they have to offer. So that may have been, but sometimes, there's a ghost in the machine. And just like, look at the one gentleman or lady, I can't remember who it was, who said something about a 2-hour wait. Who was it?
That's
Albo
Gentleman.
said, he said that something about being in the rain for 2 hours. That stinks. I mean, if just like Mike, you said, the larger ones are going to have a place for people usually to wait inside, or at least a good deal, of people can. So it can be a mixed bag depending upon where you're going. There's a lot of great stuff when you go into a convention, but you might have a hiccup here or there. So that's going to a baseball event, to a football game, going to an opera or whatever. Just going to be good and bad in any kind of entertainment.
Oh yeah, like you said about things going on around you. Pittsburgh 2 years ago, they were in the same place, but they rented a smaller section of the place. So everything was a lot different 2 years ago there. And Mr. Rightway, and he was with his ex-wife at the time, they were doing a panel together about collecting games, and they had them sitting right there. It's dark. There's free play all around them. And at that point, I got kind of tired, and I'm like, oh, there's a couple people talking up there. I guess I'll sit down and hear what I'm like. That's Mr. Rightway. I recognized him, but yeah, you couldn't hear what was going on. Bing, bing, bang, bang, everything all around you, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
time to get up and move around again.
That's what I always thought was really cool about Portland. Whenever I would see people doing videos, you know, they would have everything in a separate hall.
Separate rooms. Yep.
Yeah. So that way, you know, respectfully, people can hear. And, you know,
And it was the same at Pinball Expo. It was actually, you know, you went up the stairs or the escalator and they were on a different floor to that. Same thing at Midwest Gaming Classic. So the bigger ones do that because they kind of rent out, I guess, a large section of whatever convention center they're doing it in. Smaller cons, I mean, you kind of take what you can get. For me, I mean, and this here's my plug for anybody who organizes a convention and is watching this. You get me there, I will deal with whatever situation you've got. I am just grateful that you would think that I could be a guest.
Yeah. Because even though I was a guest at CGC this year, I got my own hotel, and I did not use one of the hotels that they had. And we had actually there were two main problems with the hotel itself, but one had to do with the town, the city, because all of the hotels that were in this block where we were at, power was off. So that is, you know, and then also we had another problem that you can check out on my video. But like I said, that has nothing to do with CGC and or even the, you know, that had to do with the specific location of hotel I was at. And I will never stay at that particular hotel again, just because of what happened there. But you can run into problems no matter what. But not everything is all doom and gloom, because I think for the most part, every convention I've ever been to, even though if there has been a problem or anything that has arisen, it's been taken care of, and I've always had an amazing time. So if you've never been to a convention, just like the Game Freak, you've never been to a convention, you're going to have fun at Torg.
Yeah.
You know, Mike and Rachel, they put on a great show there. And I know that I know some people who have definitely been involved with it before for a very long time. Some who aren't involved with it anymore to the same degree, but they put on a wonderful show. It's going to be even bigger this year. So I'm very eager to see what happens, and I can't wait to get to Midwest, and I can't wait to get eventually out to PGRE, because like Mike said, it's the mecca of game conventions. And if they want to get this this small creator out there, I'd be happy to flap my arms really hard and fly out there.
Well, I think we all need to, you know, rent a van and have a road trip down to Houston.
Road trip.
Yeah, like we do like the
itself.
Scooby-Doo van. That'd be great.
Actually,
Mystery
from
machine.
what I understand, if Mike gets the van, if he does the trip just right,
If I come down on the east side of the lake and across, then I go through Ohio.
he can pick us up around the Detroit area and then just go from there. I do want to talk about something because Brian's not here. If Brian were here, he would address it. Okay, and I know we're getting short on time. We don't have a lot. But Brian is a vendor, okay? And Brian is a vendor specifically of video game controllers. Now, he is actually one of my favorite vendors at some of these things, and not just because he
Not just because you're putting his kids through college, but
no.
That big wall of controllers behind you.
He was one of the first tables I went to. That's how I got to know Brian, was because I made a beeline for his table because he had these awesome video game controllers for these older systems. And so, you know, people have wares, you know, they sell, you know, retro video games from their collections, or, you know, however they attain these older video games. And then, you know, some people make crafts and they sell those kind of things. Or, you know, and that's all great and that's all good. But Brian is actually making something to help preserve what I consider, you know, like, I'll give you an example. The Atari 5200 controllers are horrible. Finding a good one is really tough. He makes a really good one. He makes great controllers for a lot of other systems. And so I know that when I go there, a lot of times I end up kind of sitting with him and kind of helping him if I'm not actually exchanging money with these people. I'm actually talking up the the controllers and explaining what they are, because I've got almost all of them, right?
I'm the official product tester for BD.
I kind of
let me know whatever you want.
Yeah,
product tester. Hell, he's like he's like George Plimpton. He's like the spokesperson.
yeah. I know earlier this year at Korg, he needed a break. So he asked me if I could sit with him. And so Daryl Ginther and I were sitting at his table, and Daryl and I couldn't talk. I thought we could sit there and talk and kind of, chew the fat or whatever, but we couldn't even do that because so many people were at this table, and he had a price chart with the controllers there, but it was the way he had it worded was kind of confusing, so I wasn't sure which controllers were what price. And so I'm like, okay, well, I hope it's the right price, so I'm selling these things. I'm like, well, I hope I sold it for the right price, and so I'm like, okay. And he was only gone for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, or I gave him like $600. Here's some money. The dude was making money hand over fist selling stuff, and because he sells good stuff, but it's
for him.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom more often.
I know.
You know what? I don't. The whole making money hand over fist. I don't mind that if you've got a good product.
Yep.
I'm so happy for you if you got a good product. If you're trying to scam people, like these resellers that, like, you go to their table and they're trying to charge like high list price for something that they didn't even bother like wipe a cloth over.
Mm-hmm.
But you think
about Brian's making really cool controllers for these old systems, things that people are needing to play, and I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I know he's coming out with that beat 'em and eat 'em controller, and I can't wait until that thing comes up.
That is one thing.
I'm not booting him, Phil. If you want to boot him, you have to boot him.
I'm gonna behave myself on that one, but I will say this, Brian does well, but a lot of people don't see what happens at home. The hours that he spends making these things, and the sacrifices that probably his family makes, because the time that he's spending doing that, he's not spending with his family, and that kind of thing. And so, he sacrifices a lot, and he does a lot of favors for people. And so anyway, if you happen to go to a gaming convention in Ohio, look up BD Retro Mods table.
Absolutely.
He will be there. Chances are Dr. Scott will be there in some format.
Capacity, yeah.
Either as a panelist or as having a table or something, because he just will.
Oh, just wait.
Do you sell merch yet? You need to sell merch.
So all these conventions, we don't have conventions quite like these in Canada. We have game swaps, and it's just picture it's just the vendor room, right?
Yeah.
But one thing I'll say, and I think I speak on behalf of all this, first of all, I can't sell merch because I'm Canadian. I would have to fill out tax forms if I wanted to bring any merch over the border. But one of the coolest things is, if you see me at a con, come say hi. Just being recognized is really, really cool. Like, we know we are not celebrities, but you give us that little celebrity moment, right? Just, hey, I saw you on the internet. How are you doing? I like your channel.
We know I
got a few of those. Unlike Phil, they don't bring gifts. My viewers don't bring gifts, but they say hi and we take a selfie, and I love that. I love that part of it, and I hope more of that happens in the future, because it is really cool.
I think I got that when I went to Pittsburgh this year. A young lady turned around and saw me and went, "Ew," and I'm like, "She's seen the channel." Maybe she's just reacting to me. I don't know.
It's just really cool to know that something you do for a bunch of, honestly, strangers, and then you see somebody that's actually seeing something you've done, and it is pretty cool. So,
and one other thing I got to say, I'm 6'2", 300 plus, right? And I'm thinking I'm a big dude, I get to Pittsburgh, I'm looking up at Poe, I'm like, what's going on, bro? Well, and then I get
viewers might not realize, I'm 6'1". I never considered myself short, but in this group, I'm the short guy.
And
It
then
was-
I actually got to physically see Scott last year at Torg for the first time, and it's like, what's up, dude? Same deal. I'm like, he's not heavy, but I'm like, he's a tall dude. I'm like,
In that van, it would be like Phil, Scott thing, and then there's Mike.
There was a thing where we weren't sure online who really was taller, if it was Game Dad or me or John Riggs. So when we were all in the same room, it's me.
are you taller than Riggs?
Yeah, I'm taller than Riggs. Just by
And Riggs is tall, bro.
yeah, he is tall, but
Riggs is
just
tall.
just maybe by maybe half inch. That's about it.
Yeah, but Riggs is tall.
And
I
he
got
is,
a picture with Riggs, and he's tall too.
I need to start doing that more. And that, just like Mike said, get, if there's people you meet, definitely get a picture with them. I'm usually filming and stuff, so it's not like I have my camera ready to take pictures. I'm already filming, and I already have it in a rig, and so it's a pain in the butt for me to. That's why I need to get a different camera. But definitely stop and take pictures, because I need to start doing that more with all my my friends there, and then of course anybody who wants to take a picture. I'm more than happy to take because who the heck am I? You're just taking a picture with some goofy guy who likes to make fun of Pac-Man and
Thank you, CK. You make me feel better.
But I did want to mention this real quick. If nobody's ever been to a convention, and this kind of goes without saying, but always take a list, because if you walk through the door and you think you remember what you're going to buy, you're going to have threshold syndrome. Boom, it'll disappear. But it doesn't hurt to look up what the prices are that you're willing to pay, like on eBay or something like that, and see if or price charting is a decent place, but just because they have it for that price doesn't mean that that's what it really is going for, because they also have the eBay prices there as well, what they've sold for recently.
Price charting, I find, is relatively accurate for loose games.
Yes, but
for
not
anything boxed.
No, it is not. So always put on there, the value that you're willing to pay, depending upon the research that you've done. And then if you can find something like that, just like we've been talking about bundling and stuff, if you can get a good deal that way. Otherwise, you're best off just saying, well, this specific game, because just for example, I'm looking for only one game for the Atari, and that's Jawbreaker. I have been to.
You're looking for the Game Freak.
Just looking for
right at the top of the page.
But I haven't seen a copy of it yet, and I know it's like a $50 game loose, but I haven't even seen a copy. And it's easy to find if you're there, because it's the only red cartridge in the box. So. But
I was lucky enough to find one on eBay for a decent price a few years back.
I don't have mine on the desk anymore. Sorry, I can't.
I got my copy of Hero for free. So.
Nice. I got mine when it was in the clearance bin at Kmart right after it first came out. So I'm glad I got that then.
I don't have mine.
I
got mine before Metal Jesus made it all cost super.
That was his fault.
Super big bucks.
And
I got mine for like $5, I think, way back in the day.
Well, guys.
Anyhow, gentlemen.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. You were about to say the same thing?
Yep. I was going.
Do we not hear the chimes at midnight?
But anyway, this was a really fun discussion. I know it was kind of centered into the Midwest area, but gaming conventions are kind of the similar, in different parts of the country. So, but anyway, if you guys happen to be at a gaming convention, you happen to see any one of us there, like Mike said, come say hi. We might be busy trying to film or do something, let us do our thing, but
don't be a creepy stalker, but come say hi.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, but I obviously come say hi. Man, we appreciate all you guys. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you guys anyway. So
that's right.
Anyway. With that, you guys have an awesome day. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for everybody who was also watching from Mike's Gaming Gala. We simulcast over there. I forgot to mention that.
I forgot to do that, Phil. Darn it.
Yeah, that's all right. That's
next
all right. Next time. So anyway, you guys take care, and we'll see you next time on Retro Bliss Rewind. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.